this computer. Because it'll save a file, I'll show you how to do that. Sure, no problem.
Everyone, thank you for your patience. I was supposed to arrive early to do this, but I had not been reminded in a week, and that's not how my brain works. So sorry. Thank you. Okay. Glad to see everybody this morning. It's the summer fluctuation is good. It means people are coming when they can.
There were some questions about this meeting schedule, so we might want to go over that real quick.
Sure. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
So, was the question just when it is, when are the?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have this week and then next week, which is about like the 28th or 29th or something.
28th.
Okay, 28th. And then on the weekend of July 4th, we don't meet. And then we meet. And then we don't meet on like the 17th, 19th. Okay.
All right.
I actually do. I have this little thing. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So from like, we're off on July 4th, and at that point, it's kind of like every other one. So we're off, and then we're back on for a week on the, what does that say, the 12th. And then we're off again that following week, the 19th, and then our last meeting is the last Sunday in July, the 26th. And it should correspond with the chapters. We're just kind of like one chapter per meeting until the end. So, I'm also. Well, does anybody need that like in a written, like maybe I could print out a few more of these and bring them next week? Would that be helpful? A little stuff. Okay, I can do that. Thank you for asking about that.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to open and find it again today. Probably eye doctor appointment, but stick with reading classes for today. Okay. So we'll begin with quiet again. Let's just kind of settle ourselves and open ourselves to God into this space. You can keep your eyes closed if you want to, or if you keep them open, just kind of a gentle gaze at some place that kind of feels neutral for you is ideal. Okay, so we're just gonna put our feet flat on the floor if that feels okay to you, and take a few deep breaths. Kind of relax as you breathe out. Now just take a minute to notice what's real for your body right now. Like what sensations are happening for you. You might feel a twinge of cold on your skin. You might feel tension in your shoulders or in your forehead or your jaw. You might feel discomfort somewhere, like you're leaning or itching. What do you notice in your body? Maybe take another full breath if that feels good. And let's turn our attention to our souls. Do the same thing. This is like our sense of ourselves. So maybe notice sensations, maybe like racing thoughts or worry, to-do lists. You might notice tensions, unresolved situations. Maybe you notice discomfort. Something isn't sitting just right. Just noticing what is real about ourselves and our souls in this moment. So let's see if we can take these and find a way to offer them to God in this moment. Might be some kind of thanksgiving, a request for help, a lamentation, some kind of frustration, maybe confession. Just take a minute to offer up whatever has arisen in our quiet. God, thank you for bringing us all together. Thank you for fellowship, for Christian friendship. Thank you for revealing to us things that are true about ourselves and things that are true about you, and guiding us in how to bring these closer together and to resolve things. God, I pray you would be in our conversation, prompting us to share and to hear. And I pray you glorified in our time. Amen. Okay. Okay, so this week's reading was self-examination in general and kind of this practice of the examine, and confession in particular. But before we get to that, how or where did you sense God this week? This is if you haven't been to as many of these this summer, it's kind of just, and this is a very open-ended question on purpose. You can say, I didn't really, and it felt this way. You know, you can say, this was on my walks or in creation. It could be a person you had a conversation with, a surprise. It really is anything. So certainly the items from the book, if you've had a chance to practice silence or, scripture reading and prayer and things like that. Obviously those apply, but this question is more broad than that, just to share with one another where we're sensing God in our world. So.
I'll talk at once.
Yeah, Heather.
Oh, I found God on the Audi. I was able to strike a conversation with Mark Wendell. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean when we went up to
Yeah.
Hurricane Ridge?
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah, how was that?
What?
That's right, how was that? I forgot that
It
was
was,
this week.
it was interesting because the road out to Hurricane, the hill trailhead had been closed, is closed Monday through Thursday, and we went Thursday night. Fortunately, they had stopped work, and so it was open, but nobody knew it was open, so there wasn't anybody out there.
So you saw God at work.
For a parking fun.
It was just, they gave us some questions, and it was just a time of fellowship. It was really fun sitting all of us at one table. I think there were, well, I forget how many. It was a big picnic table, 12 or something, and eating our dinner. Yeah,
That's nice.
So we went on a hike with our hiking club, or I did, yesterday. There were about 12 or 14 of us, can't remember, but anyway. Just seeing the butterflies and the flowers and all the different things that
Yeah.
have been created by God, and just. I mean, we hike a lot, and just the different intricacies of
Yeah.
of what these flowers look like, and I don't know, and seeing the animals, we saw marmots and
Oh,
deer, and it's just like, wow, it's just,
yeah,
creation is just
the
amazing.
wonder, yeah.
You know, and just the camaraderie of people that, you know, they're not Christians, a lot of them, but you know,
Mhm.
they know I am, and Ardith is, so when we hike with them, you know,
Yeah.
they're watching us
Bringing them.
probably.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
I went on a hike with a couple of friends and, um. We went down to this little lake called Pumpkin Seed Lake and. This other woman and I just sat on a rock, you know, and it's right near. Where you go out Obstruction Point Road and then you go down and everybody goes on the trails and this is kind of a hidden trail. And so there wasn't anybody down there but us.
Hmm.
And one friend was hiking around looking at stuff, trying to find a rock, and Janet and I just each sat on a rock and we, for maybe 15 minutes and kind of meditated. It was just beautiful, and I was listening to all the different birds, and I would get my Merlin out and see if I could remember who's who, you know, and which is a app. And we got up to leave, and Janet. And here, right beside us, like maybe from there to there was a marmot on a rock, just sitting right beside us. It was all, you know, how they do when they're trying not to be seen, they try to just. I don't know, just kind of meld into the rock. Just think that we were all there together.
Yeah, yeah. He was joining you in your meditation.
He wasn't worried by us at all.
Yeah.
We were so quiet.
Oh, I have another one. We have a mutual friend, Janet, who was at home with another friend. They were having lunch out on their deck. Janet's husband comes in and says, I think I'm having a heart attack. They take him to, which they should have called the ambulance, but they didn't. But anyway, they took him to Squim Clinic, got him on Life Flight, got him to St. Michael's in Silverdale, rushed him into surgery. He had 2 clogged arteries, 2 stents, and he was home the next day. But just the timing of all that they were there, it was just, it was all God orchestrated in my mind. It was just like, and they're believers, so they're just like, couldn't believe how fortunate all that was, yeah. And he was in the hospital telling everybody about Jesus too, so that was, I said, is he talking about Jesus? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of noticing a thing, because it's, and there's these things that happen, I mean, that doesn't happen every day, I know that, but there are things that happen. You know, regularly and or just on any day that it's easy to not, you know, sense that God has worked things out or has put things in order, you know, I have something in mind to share, but as we're sitting here and I'm listening, another thing, you know, something that's coming up is my sister-in-law. I'm not close to my brother and sister-in-law, we get along fine, but you know, our family has disconnection more than it has connection. But she reached out and asked me to pray for something, you know, and I was like, yeah, of course, you know, and I responded and everything. But I'm sitting here realizing like, they're not particularly believers in any sense. And the fact, so it's like, she's sharing with me, and I think she's reaching out, and I think I hadn't really noticed that. And I think that it's very likely, you know, that God's in the middle of that in a sense,
Oh, yeah.
right? To say like, and now that I'm sitting here becoming more aware of it, like noticing, I'm like, oh, there's a thread that I might, you know, pull in that conversation and reach back, just try to make a note. It's gonna be a physical note, but like to reach back out and follow up, you know, and because it's not that I didn't notice it, but I didn't really notice it, you know, that hey, maybe God is moving here and I could join in. Anyway, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it's interesting how sometimes people come up to me and say, oh, will you pray for me? Or, you know, I know you pray, so will you pray
Yeah.
for this situation? I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, very simple, I'm sure it happened, yeah.
I find it really easy to find God in nature and hiking and just being outdoors. And I really appreciated Sarah's ministry this morning about being with friends, because people gatherings aren't always real comfortable for me. And, and it's hard to be thankful for them sometimes. And, you know, just the human world in general is tough. So I really appreciated that and made me think about times I spend maybe in smaller groups or when I'm with friends and how that can feel. And yeah, God's there. Just when people ask you to pray for them, you don't really didn't even know they, you know, they were in that realm,
Yeah, yeah,
but they know you are.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
yeah,
That's a really cool way to build up.
yeah. And I appreciate you saying that about, you know, people can be difficult or like these social things can be difficult, but because I think. I know. Because I know you're not the only person in the room that can feel that way. And I think that it makes people feel like not alone in that, you know, when you're willing to, you know, to say like, that's a hard thing. And, I'm being ministered to in that to just say, that's okay, you know, like we're not alone in that, so. What else? We talked about nature especially.
So, the church has that directory that's for praying for each other, and I was on the list this week. So I had two people text me. I'm responding things, I'm just trying, yeah. I was driving up to LaConner to visit a friend that I've had for 50 years, who's disabled and homebound. And I want to see her, but it's also hard. And, someone texted me, I'm praying for you, and it was kind of to be still and know I'm God. I walked into my friend's house. I've never seen this on the wall of her house before. Be still and know I am. And we had this conversation together we've never had.
Wow.
And I was able to do some things for her, but you know, it was like, I just felt like that was a special day. It happened to be the day people prayed for me. It just happened to be, but I really felt that. It was hard to miss that one. I can tell you this. It's hard to miss
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So. And just affirming each other as friends and how few we have in life that we have that kind of bond with and for that long. And we know each other's stories for so long. And so anyway, it really was a special day. Besides Deception Pass, it's gorgeous.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, those timings can be. Maybe. And maybe for me, that's some of the times when I really have noticed God the most or sensed Him the most, right? Is these timings that are just like.
Yeah.
That, yeah, you can stay, that's right. It's like, it's just. I had a friend who used to say, it's almost as if. Meaning it's almost as if there's a God who's in control, who like knows the things that could do this for you. It's almost as if, you know. Like, yeah. You might have sensed God most this week and almost like in a discomfort. It's like, there's just that. I know certain things aren't the way I want them to be, if that makes sense. Like I know sometimes we might say like, I know there's more. I know I want to tweak some things or I know whatever, but I can't. It's like the pieces just aren't coming together in that way. And, you know, I can always say, oh, well, life circumstances, this or whatever. But I also know I need to do some better containing of myself or like, you know, some people say self-parenting or whatever, but it's just like, yeah, I can try to set other people up for success, but then I'm not really doing that for myself and then can be frustrated that I'm all over the map. And, but I think then, you know, kind of was asking myself the question, okay, so, you know, we're reading this book that I've read a couple times and I absolutely God has used these practices for me. I mean, all of them in different seasons of my life. And I'm not really sitting with them as like I would like. And so the question becomes like, what's the hang up? Like what's happening for me that, you know, it doesn't have to be every day, but if it's once a week, it's whatever. And this is kind of where I'm getting to the idea of like, oh,
I'm not really shepherding myself very well, you know? Anyway, so I just share that in case anybody else is in that boat where it's like, what is the thing that's keeping me from something that I really do want to be different? You know, it's like, so it's kind of where I'm sensing God kind of being like, why don't you just pay a little attention here? Anybody else that just kind of had a specifically, if I say, where did you sense it out this week? Does anything come up that you haven't shared yet? Okay, so if you read, I know everybody's busy, but what came up for you as you read? She just to kind of name a few things to get your memory firing some recall. She explored the examine of consciousness, the examine of conscience. Oh, so examine of consciousness was like, where did I notice God in my day? Like, what's he up to? The examine of conscience is more like how was I in this day? And is there anything, you know, God's showing me that I might have done differently, or, you know, since he wants me to pay attention to. And then confession. And she includes, I think, a significant discussion of her opinion of how rarely we do this and the effect of that on us as people. What stood out to you as you read, or what came up for you?
My first reaction was just, things sometimes come back up and you're like, gosh, that just needs to stay put away somewhere. Oh, gosh, I am really trying not to be an evangelical trauma dump every week, but like the whole accountability group thing came up to me with this. And just like you must confess all of your things to this person who's gonna hold you accountable, and then you go into the world of condemnation and like, so my initial reaction to this chapter was no. Because that world is just
Trying to leave it behind.
terrible. Yes. And so that was my first reaction, which was not very helpful, but I'm glad that I was audiobooking this early in the week, so I had more time to simmer in it a little bit. And I guess I'm just really thankful that God works even when our brains don't fit with certain ways of doing things, because I feel like other times this week I've had things brought up to me that made me aware of things that I need to work on or be aware of or change my approach to. And I didn't have to sit there in silence and self-examine myself to make that happen, because maybe my brain is just not there right now. And so I've just appreciated that God works with someone who may not be equipped to handle things the way the book wants me to.
Yeah. Hearing that is like this sense of, you know, God's mercy and grace and knowledge, which is like, I think I'm year on year right now. It's like I notice so much for myself and for, you know, people in my family and stuff like that, like how much our experiences can like block us from certain things. It's like I find myself saying sometimes, I just can't, right? And it's like, and to understand for someone else, I think they just can't, you know, and there's this way in which it's like, well, hopefully, maybe one day this side of heaven, right? It's like there could be resolution or relief there. But the reality is like today's not the day on, you know, a lot of things. And so, but how neat it is that it's like, well, that's not holding God up. He's not like, hey, this is extra hard for you. You know, like it's just like, no, there's so many other ways that he has. It's not like, you know, just one way. And so I think it's a great example of, yeah, there's just stuff that's not accessible, and that's okay. Like God has a million ways. And I also hear you saying, like, even though all of this stuff is so affecting, you're still open to hearing these things. It's like I may not feel safe or open to hearing this in this context, but it's not therefore that, you know, you're closed off to that, which I think is admirable, given what you've been through in that.
I think that was kind of where I was in that section about, conscious. So I'm kind of laughing at myself because if anything goes wrong, I take the blame. If my phone doesn't work right, if I pushed the wrong button, I did the wrong thing, I did the wrong thing. And so, there's that sense when I go start looking, and I'm into self-analysis, which is not necessarily healthy either. So, I don't, it's not a place where I sense God. I hear voices. It's hard for me to not hear the voices that say, you got it wrong again. You didn't have enough faith. They weren't healed because you didn't pray right. I mean, whatever it is. But even I laugh at the phone and the computer because I'm sure I hit the wrong button. That probably had nothing to do with me. So, you know, when you have that kind of default anyway, it's my fault, and there's my phone that I thought. It's my fault.
She hit the wrong button.
I did hit the wrong button. And God has a sense. So I think that was probably, I'm really good at confession, because I will take blame and confess. But that over self-condemnation probably, that I always hear God's voice in that.
Do you mean that you hear the condemnation as his voice, or do you mean
I don't
like
know,
reassuring you?
it doesn't matter, I can't tell. Because, you know, I kind of get that hangover from the past too, that it's like, it was God's voice according to the people I grew up with. Something's wrong with you. You need to fix it. So,
Yeah, I think if I feel like he would be comfortable with me saying this. I think if Brady were here, he would be able to say absolutely. Like our conversations a lot are, you know, how do I sort out the inner voice that is previous voices, you know, and the inner voice that is the Spirit of God, you know, and I do think that that is super tricky. I sometimes want to encourage him with like, well, do we think that that's how Jesus speaks to people? You know, is that like from what we know, do we think that that's, you know, Jesus is God, the human representation of God? Is that how we imagine him speaking to people from what he knows? And I think it's like hard for him to even maybe hold that, if that makes sense. Because maybe people in his world talk to each other like that, you know, so it's like that feels more real. I don't know, but I appreciate you saying that, and you're not the only one. It's hard. Paul, do you have anything for us on that front? Yeah, because it's like what, wait, like our, you can say no, of course, but I know that sense of like our inner voice is often the voice of somebody else, right? Like if Brady says if he says some of the stuff that is happening inside of his head, I know which family member it sounds like. Does this make sense? Like he wasn't born having all of those in his mind. It's like they came around in someplace.
I mean, you pick up things from your family members, your friends, cultural narratives. I mean, there's a whole stew that we marinate in that trains us to think about ourselves and our emotions in a certain way. So when we have an internal narrator or thoughts about something, we get used to, especially in church culture, I think we are trained to police our thoughts and to evaluate our emotions and our thoughts and ask, is this what I'm supposed to be thinking? Is this what I'm supposed to be feeling? Is this appropriate for me to do? And we, instead of allowing ourselves to just have those thoughts or have those emotions, we interrogate them, or we try to suppress them, or we criticize ourselves or condemn ourselves for having those thoughts and those feelings. It's one of the reasons I really appreciate Fred Rogers. His entire, and just those of you who don't really know his background, apart from like his role in the Presbyterian Church, but he also learned a lot about developmental psych from Erik Erikson and some of like the masters of what we now think of as lifespan psychology. We used to refer to as child development psychology, who focused a lot on kids and adults experiencing thoughts, learning from their environment, but also learning how to just have your thoughts and your feelings and just accept them for what they are. And to just recognize that they're normal and to just sit in them without condemning yourself for it. And when you look at the way he thought about how to speak to kids, and when you watch clips of his show, a lot of what he is doing is training children to recognize their emotions, to sit in their emotions without condemning themselves, and to just process it naturally without any kind of self-criticism. It's extraordinarily healthy.
Mhm.
And it's something that a lot of us, like, I mean, there are adults who watch his show and see what he's telling the kids to do, and they break down crying because they've never had anyone tell them, how do I accept a compliment? How do I be angry at someone without lashing out at them? How do I be sad about something without feeling guilty about being sad about a particular thing?
Mhm.
And we don't, in a lot of ways, our emotional literacy in our culture is pretty low.
Mhm.
We're very, maybe I'm understating a little bit. Part of the reason for that is because we think that some of our thoughts and our feelings are inherently unacceptable. And I simply just don't think that's true.
And so I'm watching that movie right now,
Mhm.
Mr.
Yeah,
Rogers'
yeah,
Neighborhood,
it's fun.
Yeah.
but he's dating with a man named Lloyd that
Mhm.
has some real challenges,
Right.
and it's
Mhm.
just like you said, it's just like taking it at a lower level, I mean, at a different level.
It does. And he interrogates emotions, but in a way that is not
He's very calm.
very calm,
Yeah.
very accepting, and very, I get angry too.
Mhm.
I feel guilty too. I feel greedy sometimes too. Like, I mean, and just recognizing that other people have those thoughts and those feelings, and that's normal. Because if you're a person having an emotion, or a person having a thought, or a person having an experience, you are not so original that you are the only human being on this planet who has been the only person to experience those thoughts or those feelings or those experiences. So if you're not alone, that means what you're experiencing is very likely normal.
Well, and then the thing about crying for men too, I think that plays a lot into a lot of,
Yeah, because men are not allowed to express emotions.
yeah.
We're not supposed to.
Except anger.
Except anger.
And
pride. But we're not allowed to be upset that,
I mean, some parents
Yeah.
tell boys don't cry.
correct, and I think that is
That's
toxic trash.
why did you?
So I spend a lot of time talking, like when I have groups of male students, when we get into lifespan psych at the college, I talk with them a lot about toxic masculinity and dealing with emotions, and try to model that kind of more positive behavior for them wherever I possibly can, because that is something that bothers me quite a bit.
And then, like you were saying, you're condemning yourself if you are
Right.
male and you're crying or you want to cry. It's-
Mhm. It's interesting because as you were saying, like, you get these messages, especially in the church sometimes, which I think is true. It might be different for everybody, but it's like, it's kind of this, you should, or that's wrong, that thing. And what's interesting is, as Brady and I have discussed this over the last couple of years, because we really have done whatever, tried to do the work, right, of noticing that and kind of saying, can I just sit with this and say it's real? And I think that's hopefully it's coming out in the group, but I think it would be neat if we could do that more readily before the Lord, just kind of being like, this is what's real. I'm just holding it up. I don't need
Mhm.
to hide it. I don't need to fix it. But I can at least name it in God's presence, and we can sit with it and not always having to judge it. But as you were saying, it's like, okay, essentially saying, well, we judge that thought or that sensation or that feeling or whatever. As Brady and I've had this conversation about, like, okay, can we sit with it without judging it? Sometimes the sense it feels, and I do think this is some church baggage, but it's like, it feels like that in and of itself is wrong. Like, even just thinking of, like, the idea of not judging your
Mhm.
emotions itself is like, well, no, because then like how can I discern right and wrong? How can I, right? It's like,
Mhm.
it starts to feel like this, no, it is right to judge yourself harshly over things that are not of God or something, right? So if I ask the question, if I start to grow or imagine growing and not doing that, there's this I mean, let's just call it a childhood like church voice that's just kind of like, I don't know, then what? Then what are you gonna be up to? You know, like kind of a sense. And so anyway, I just kind of want to say that out loud because I feel like we're people who are trying to kind of do that. And there's also this like, is this safe? Is it safe to not judge myself so
Mhm.
harshly? And I don't exactly know how to describe that other than that, but
I mean, it's an internalized need for control.
Hmm.
And and the idea of letting go of that and not policing ourselves is terrifying because, oh no, what if
Mhm.
I have a bad thought and that shatters my faith or leads me to do something that's going to separate me from God, which we're trained to be afraid of.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's this thing called the slippery slope argument. It's a
Mhm.
logical fallacy where you think one little thing is going to lead to something else that's worse, and that will lead to something else that's worse, and that will lead to something else that's worse. So another term that we use to describe that in psychology is catastrophizing, where you just assume that the worst possible outcomes and all bad things will end up happening
Mhm.
if you allow one tiny little mistake or one impurity into the system. It just destroys the whole thing, and that is not true.
Mhm.
That is the Manson family way.
It is the mindset.
Yeah.
Like we are master catastrophizers.
I thought it was interesting that she used Psalm 139 and you know how David kind of let it all out and was still comfortable in talking to God
Mhm.
as an example of that, you know, we can be real.
Yeah.
Or the whole idea of self-examination is a good thing.
Mhm.
But of course, I think what everybody's saying is sometimes we get so hung up on that we forget about God's mercy.
Mhm.
and love.
I just going, when you talk about letting go, the first thing that the word that comes to mind is trust.
Mhm.
And so to really let go in any relationship or in any interaction. So, and I think I just read this out. I go, like, if we have problems praying to God, it's not the prayer that's a problem, it's our relationship with God.
Mhm.
So if I have trouble letting go or
Mhm.
really that loss of control thing, it's like, where's my trust?
Mhm.
And David obviously had it. I'm not sure I do. I mean, that's kind of that feeling I have.
Yeah, I wonder as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, this is interesting because that sense of trust, it's like, I wonder if, and for clarity, my church background that is troubling to me is evangelical as well. There's a lot of good things that might have come out of that, but these are some of the harder things. But that it's like the Calvinistic sense of total depravity that becomes like, well, you never trust yourself. You never trust yourself. You can't trust yourself because you can't trust your thoughts. You can't trust, you can't trust, you can't trust. And it's interesting.
Because of our sinful nature kind of thing, is that?
Yeah, yeah, it's like, so total
yeah.
depravity is like, there's nothing good in person.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just so true. It's like, I know. Well, do you want to say more? You might have
No,
a perspective for some of us.
Whenever that comes up, I think of the whatever videos, whatever I see of babies and the kind of
Mhm.
experiments with babies of their
Mhm.
automatic reactions to things and that before they would have been socialized or trained and now they can know what all the reactions are, but just that they respond to good.
Mhm.
They're not, I just don't believe in our sinful beginnings or that we are bad. I think we're mostly good.
Yeah, and I think like, I can see the, I don't even want to call them arguments, right? But like the observations on both sides of that. I think it can be, I think
what has been troubling for me, is it going so one-sided, right? Is it just kind of going, it's like, there's nothing, so any thought you have should be suspect, anything you do should be suspect, any, like, drive you have should be suspect. And anyway, but in the trust thing, it's like, oh, but what we're actually might be talking about here instead is trusting God, right? Is that if I keep coming to God and I am genuinely at whatever it means to try to turn my face toward God today, right? Whatever it is that I know, because we all would do that in a different way and have different histories and whatever, but in an ongoing way, if I am genuinely doing that as best I know or the best I can I trust God? Can I trust him to continue to like guide my life, to be with me, to hear me or whatever? And that it isn't really about trusting myself, right? The policing my thoughts becomes about trusting myself instead of going, well, if I could let go of all those things, could I trust God? Does that make sense at all? I see some yeses and some like, wait, what? But I think I hadn't ever noticed in my own inner world that the sense of policing and control is essentially trusting myself. It's trusting my own thoughts, it's trusting my judgments, it's trusting my own thing or whatever. And that if I were to let go, I'm not actually trusting in myself. I'm not trusting that I'm going to then be great. I'm not trusting that I'm always going to do the right thing or know the right thing. That's not, for me, that's not what I would be doing. It's that I'm going to trust that God's going to show up and guide me and convict me and do those things. But it's, anyway. I don't know if that's helpful for anybody. It's helpful for me. So
It's
I'm still
complicated,
talking.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's complicated, and there's two verses in Philippians that are kind of like contradictory. And the first one says, God is at work in you to do what he needs to do. And the next chapter says, and work out your salvation. So it's kind of like, okay, God's doing it, but I still have a role. I'm not sure what it looks
Yeah.
like or
Yeah.
what it means. So I have to be engaged enough to want it, but even that comes from God. There's scripture that says it's him in me that wills me to do.
Yeah.
So I keep trying to take more control, obviously, than just saying God is at work in me, or I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be interested. I wouldn't be engaged.
Mhm.
I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think we were doing that Lectio Divina, and that's the verse that hit me. It is God who is at work in me. And it's said to a group, but it felt very personal when we were doing it.
Yeah.
What verse speaks to you? That's the one that did, because obviously that's what I needed to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there could be that question, like, what if so I mean, it sounds like the broader question is, and I think it's an ongoing one, like, what is our part in that, right? Like, if we're not working in an achievement kind of a way that makes us like failures, right? When we don't, like, what is our work? And I don't have a clear answer to that. I'm interested, but I will say, I think that is the spirit of some of these like practices or whatever that are really ancient. A lot of these are really, really old. People have been doing them since the early days of Christianity and in other religions as well in their own ways. But like, but it's a sense of like showing up, right? Of being open to the work that God might, it's like if God is working in us, then it's this like openness to that or joining in with that. Or does anybody else have like words for that? Or I see mine's clicking, so
It's complicated.
I always
It's
like
like
that.
one of the deep questions of
yeah.
our soul and.
That saying,
Mhm.
when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Huh.
Because so many times things have been there, but I haven't seen them. So I do think, and I think
are you willing to give an example of that? You don't have to.
No, I don't know if I can give an example,
But
but,
that's okay.
but I mean, I think there's lots of time, well, even reading scripture or reading anything. You may have read it and it never clicked,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden. For some
Yeah.
reason, a light bulb goes off.
Yeah. That resonates with me.
I think one thing that's a struggle for me is not the like things that I can intellectually process, but unpacking the instinctual things that like it's hard to stop them because they just happen. And that's really what's been brought to me this week. I mean, growing up in the Midwest, like everything has to be okay. Like a stasis has to be reached. And so if someone is upset, we have to fix it. If someone is angry, we have to fix it. If someone isn't happy, we have to fix it. We have to have an answer for everything. And no one sits in discomfort because that is the greatest sin of all. And that is not just culturally where I grew up, but my family for generations also grew up in that. And so you just realize how intertwined that is like in your DNA. And just I had a conversation with my brother yesterday who almost never calls me and called for like an hour to talk about some family stuff. But my instinct was to keep stepping in as the bossy older sister who has had more family connection than he has made effort to do to tell him things that I don't think he has a perspective on. And maybe he didn't pick up on any of this and I'm just being like overly processing myself, but like I feel like that was not the reaction I should have had. And I needed to leave space for him to say what he needed to say and not try to jump in and fix it. It is so hard to not do that. Like that is literally like how I am wired to be, and it's not good. And so I've just realized like it's hard to stop yourself when you have something that is so ingrained in you, like it's just the natural step forward. So it's not even I'm making a choice to do something that I shouldn't do or that I should do. It's like this is so the natural outflowing of me that I don't even know I'm doing it until I've already done it. And I guess that's where I'm struggling a little bit right now because there's a lot of unpacking that's going to happen with that and a lot of work. I very much appreciate, this is not to put you on the spot, but I very much appreciated just our conversations because I feel like you are really good at asking questions and opening space for speaking. And I am not good at that. I'm good at telling people what to do. And so I have really enjoyed it. Well, and that's probably why I'm good at my job because I've been
You tell them what.
I've been DNA contracted to be this way, so I found a job that let me keep doing that, right? But that doesn't necessarily make me a good person all the time, and so I think it's been really nice, and everyone in this room has been very like, just the conversation and the way it flows. Like there isn't prescription, and it's made me stop and not just try to find answers to things. It's left me with a lot of like, I don't know what to do with this. And I'm not good at this thing that I know I need to start doing. But I think that's it. The hardest thing for me is now like understanding where the work is, but like, how do you stop yourself when you already do the thing that you're frustrated at, and then you're like, oh shoot, that was yesterday. And I'm now realizing that was not the way I should have handled it. And then maybe in confession, I can go to my brother, but like he isn't on the same wavelength spiritually either. And so like, does that confession to him mean anything? Or how do I word it in a way that's can be meaningful to
I
him?
mean, you kind of just confessed to us.
I know. And you're not an evil accountability group that's going to hone that over me for the next month. But like, okay. So, but I think I just feel a sense of that being what's hit me this week. And I don't have any answers.
If you find one, let me know.
Yeah.
Oh, the desire for the right answer.
Yeah. But there's some beauty sometimes in sitting in something that's not pleasant. And I think I've missed out on a whole life of that because I've been fixing everything.
Oh, sad. I wrote
I
down,
know.
I'm gonna add my Midwestern brother, sisters. Do you think that's, well, how did you put it? Things need to be fixed.
Everything has to be fixed. It has,
Well,
there has
see,
to
in
be
our
a
family,
space.
we're indecisive. And so I don't think we fix, I would say that's not true of my experience growing up in the Midwest, but that requires decision making and.
So the interesting place that that comes in though, because my family is often indecisive about a lot of things, but it's because they don't want to make someone else uncomfortable by making a decision that might make them uncomfortable. And you cannot upset the social stasis, like this is a thing. Nobody
Okay,
wants
I
to be
agree.
upset, so there's an indecisiveness and also, anyway,
Okay, I do.
it's complex. I love the Midwest, it's full of lovely people, but there is a lot of underlying like, whew, that I didn't realize until we don't live there.
And I really appreciate you, Sarah, because I think you give voice better to some of the things we feel, and we don't have to say it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting me.
I always like hearing these things. That's another thing though, reminds me that when you ask for forgiveness from somebody and they're not on the same wavelength, how they take it and what you do with that, because they may not really accept your forgiveness, and you gotta deal with that only.
When you just don't even know like how that person, like, because he was doing the same thing, we were talking over each other on the phone. He was doing the same thing, because we were raised in the same house, in the same place, right? And so he probably doesn't even think about the fact that what I was doing is annoying to him, because it's probably not.
Just normal.
Yes.
Oh, and he might feel like you were criticizing him if you confessed to doing it.
There's layers.
There.
There's layers.
I do think there's a sense though that that's, I'm guessing, and you should correct me, I'm totally open to that, anybody can correct me, actually, I'm always like, oh gosh. I've got the professors and I was like, no, but it seems like
He's
that's.
off for the summer.
Okay, perfect. No, but there's this sense of like, okay, well, if we could grow in something, or if something is ever going to change, right? Like the very first parts of that are like awareness, right? Or
Mhm.
in some cases, like having that moment, it's like, it doesn't all come together at once, but it might be something more like, okay, now I'm just aware that that dynamic inside of me or between people even exists. And then maybe the next thing is more like, I can hold one more second of space, before the self-condemnation floods in, or before I say that thing or whatever. And then I think it seems like a lot of the journey is both letting those beats get longer, in between, or that then just give room to like a new decision. But in the beginning, I don't know what new thing I would do instead, or that's not how things have often happened for me. And so I'm just saying, it's like, yeah, I think the questions can lead the journey forward, if that makes sense. But the first thing is to know that they're there. And so it's like, it just sounds like growth is what it sounds like, even though that first thing is frustration. I don't know, you didn't say frustration, but it feels heavy. It always seems to feel heavier before it gets any better, right? Because there's this like, well, now that I know this thing exists, and of course I somehow feel responsible for it, because now I gotta fix it. I do I do feel that. But there aren't any answers yet. There's only questions at that part. I don't know, it has these like tinges of like confusion or hopelessness, or it's like the dark before the light a little bit. I don't know if I'm putting good words to that, but I think that's just I think that it's a necessary place and one of the harder places. It's like I see it and yet I don't have anything I can do with that yet.
I think though, like when we've talked about just having to like sit in the presence of God and let him do work, it kind of makes me feel like that's what I have to do. Like
Yeah.
there isn't, and really my prayer is now give me that beat so that I can take a second, and in my mind, I want my first reaction to ask a question, not to prepare a statement. And so if I have a minute, then I can make myself do that. But like I can't make the minute. And so like God has to make the minute. Like it's really tough, but also very freeing for someone who control is a big deal. Because there's nothing I can do about it, honestly. Like it's just I don't know.
Yeah, there's a line, and I'll bring it back to the book, and I know we need to close, but at some point, I don't think it was in this chapter, but she kind of has this expression where she says, at some point, you've like done these things and you've done these things and you've tried this and you've done that, and you just realize like, no, there's no, it's not, I'm not doing it for myself. Like if that was gonna be happening, it already would have happened, right? Like if any of these things I know or could do were gonna be beneficial, they would. And now it's like, it's a different sense of God's gonna have to do this. Like, this is where this is found. It's not just my work harder, my Christian work harder at it sense that is gonna make a difference. So. Okay, well, I always enjoy our conversations and I don't like closing them down, but here we are. Okay. Okay, let's quiet again and kind of turn collectively to self-examination. Maybe just do with your eyes whatever feels good, whatever seems helpful in the moment. You can close them, you can kind of have a soft gaze, you could even turn around if facing the wall feels better or something like that. Let's take a breath or two. So we've heard a lot from one another today about what God has on our mind and how he has been showing himself in different ways. What does he want us to see? What do you imagine that perhaps God wants you to walk away today with? God, we acknowledge that as we sit in self-examination, we are bound to notice things that we want to be different. And in doing so, for a lot of us, the instinct is to try to fix those, because why else would you show them to us? But to give us growth. And it is uncomfortable to sit with what is and to not know how much you want us to do and how much you want us to seek you to do. There's a huge mystery to that. But God, I pray that at least you would help us be fully convinced in our being that you see us and you understand who we are and where we are. You accept us for who we are and where we are. And that is the relationship we have, is him as God and us as fallen people. And that's still safe. And it can still be open. And God, I pray that you would show us this week exactly that, whether there's new things we need to try or whether the thing we need to do is just sit with you or accept your grace or something else. I thank you for being with us. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
For sure you all are making the group bye.
We're done.
The ones.
You just said
It's all on your arm.
And.
You didn't look at the things.